Welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Reformer. Today's episode is a special one. Not only are we welcoming two guests, but we're also exploring the story of a studio that spanned generations. Sarah Liston and her mum, Linda Rhodes, are the powerhouse duo behind EQ Pilates in the West Midlands. Linda founded the studio back in 2001 and Sarah joined a few years later, bringing her own classical training and mentoring experience into the mix. Together, they now run 4 studio spaces and have been offering group reformer classes for over a decade, long before reformer became the trend that it is today. We get into how the industry has changed, why they transitioned from contemporary to classical Pilates, what it's like mentoring your own mum and vice versa, and the challenges and joys of running a family business. Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, if you're loving the conversations on the podcast, it would mean so much to me if you could take a moment to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This helps to get us up in the charts. We've been in the charts every week since we launched, and this is really helping us to get the guests on that I know you're going to love. And know that you can also watch these conversations on our YouTube channel as well. Just search Beyond the Reformer. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get into this incredible conversation with Sarah and Linda. Sarah and Linda, it is so wonderful to welcome you to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. Definitely.
And I'm interested to start with your studios because you've built something really rare, a multi-generational Pilates studio that's grown and evolved and kept clients for over 20 years. And that is some feat. Can I start with, how did this begin? And did you ever imagine it would look like this today?
Probably not like this today. No. But then, I don't live in the past and I don't live in the future. I'm a very now person. So I qualified in 2000 and decided that although I was working at a hospital and a couple of church halls, I wanted my own place. Almost immediately I decided that. So in February, I opened a studio with absolutely no preconceptions or anything. I just did it. And because in 2001 there were not many studios and I sent a general ad out, they just came, they just queued and queued, paid their checks and booked. And so the studio just took off. I did make a big effort to get it mirrored and make it look as nice as possible. So when we talk about aesthetics, not in the people, but in their surroundings, my opinion is that people do like to come to a nice space. And so we did create that.
And were you 52 when you did this? Have I got my facts right? I mean, that's an interesting pivot. How did that feel?
The 51, I was working at David Lloyd and David Lloyd was trying to get Pilates up and running. And so they were sending the manager off to do the course in London, which was really slightly different to how they train people today. You had to stay there and do your long hours, not like in a classroom situation with real people. He just didn't have the time. And he said, can you help me with the breathing? Was a yoga teacher teaching there, you see? And I said, yes, I've got a book and I read them. I said, this is what you need to do for your breathing. In the end, he just couldn't manage to get away. And the following week, he said, would you like to be a Pilates teacher? I went, yeah, okay. So off I went and got trained. And that was it. And Liv Robinson there in those days was pretty big. You've heard of Liv Robinson.
Of body control Pilates, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. And her partner, I mean, he was amazing. You went and you taught in a very large studio with comprehensive equipment, and it was not like a mat room. It was quite different.
So when David Lloyd sent you down to do that, was it to do the comprehensive training? Is that what it was at that time?
No, it was purely mat.
Purely mat.
Yeah, and that took me 12 months. And then you've got a written exam and all of that to do. So it was very thorough. And the people who taught you were ballet dancers, so they were very strict.
I can imagine. And so, Sarah, you joined the business when you were 33, is that right?
Yeah. So I just had my first child and we decided to move home to be near a family. And so I started to work with Mom, looking after reception and the business side of things, computerizing things. So I joined in 2001 and then I was drawn in, not necessarily by the Pilates, but the community, the people, like how they all came in and they all chatted to me because I was the one behind the desk. But they all had their own community within each class. They loved chatting afterwards, and then they all felt amazing when they'd finished their class. And I thought I wanted a bit of that, really. It wasn't like I did loads of classes initially with
She was, every time I walked in, she's on the mat doing a class instead of behind the desk.
So I just kind of fell into doing loads of classes, and then I thought, oh, I think I want to do the training. But it was less about myself and more about other people. I didn't feel like Pilates was going to change necessarily my body, my life. And in that sense, I kind of wanted to be the one to pass on Pilates to other people to make them feel really good. So maybe it was a bit backwards, but I wanted to be the one at the front of the room.
And you've still got clients that are with you today from those early days. What do you think keeps them coming back? Is that community part of it?
Well, I think we're very good teachers. That sounds conceited, but we are. We care about them. We look after them. We really look after them. So I've got clients that have been coming to me from yoga for 40 years. When I was training, Lynn said, if you look after your clients, you'll keep them at least 2 years. I went, what is she talking about? I'd already had people then 15, 20 years.
What does looking after them mean to you?
We've always got a human being, not just an app. From the very first day Mum opened in 2001, she had a receptionist. That's quite rare. From day one, the studio always invested in a person that was there to greet you, look after your bookings. I think from the start, it was never about the money because we were already investing way beyond like we needed to in people. So they always see a face, and then we know everyone's name. Mum less so because her memory is always crap for names. But
I know everybody's body.
She does know everyone's body. So it's not faceless and numbers. We're not a numbers driven business, although we probably should be reading, because I was listening to one of your other podcasts, like we need to know more about our numbers. And we'll come on to profitability later. The fact that we know them and
know their birthdays, when they have children, when they have grandchildren, when they're poorly.
Yeah, we do have a flower budget. Yeah, for new hips, new knees. And then after 70, you definitely get big birthday flowers. Our client base has grown with us. You know, if they were coming in their 50s, they're now well into their 70s.
And some in their 80s. And we've got people in their 90s. So
I love that. And I think what you say is so important because we'll talk about the teaching. The teaching is important and the quality of the teaching is important. But the people are more important. And people comment on in my studio as well, the fact that you can talk to a human being, because also when you are working with clients from different generations, they need different levels of support. Some people like an app. They don't want to deal with a human being. That's their generation. The majority of the calls we get into the studio are existing members who just need support. How many classes have I got left? Can you check this for me? And they really love, that they get some help with that. We also have a flower budget. I mean, these people have invested a lot of money into your business and you've invested a lot of time and effort into them. And it's a relationship, isn't it? And like you would nurture any other relationship. So it's interesting how you kind of homed in on that point because someone else might have homed in on the quality of the Pilates, which we will talk about. But I think you're right. I think what keeps people coming back for 40 years is they feel they're cared about and that they're seen and that they're known. And I think that makes a huge difference to their journey. It's a place they want to be. I'm in agreement. I think the studios need to be a place you want to be in aesthetically as well. But the people need to be too. You need to feel like you're wanted there and that you feel comfortable in your own skin.
I think the other thing is that when you start looking for teachers, as I did, immediately I needed a teacher. I picked people that I liked that were having a nice personality and that were genuine. And I have to say that the EQ team is fantastic. I would defend them against any client. They're as important, if not more important, than the clients. You have to look after your teachers and respect them and share your knowledge. And we've always done that, haven't we?
Yeah.
There isn't anything they can't say to us. And I think that's very important, that when there's a problem, that they can come to you and talk about it. And if they want a night off to go out drinking, you know, great, I'll cover for you. We've got that. We've got that, I think, in spades in our team.
It's such an important point you make, Linda, because the energy of the studio you're trying to create is such an important part. I think picking teachers that have that right energy is such an important part, but you also cultivate it, don't you, with the support that you give. Lots of teachers tell me they go into studios, they don't even know any of the other teachers there. This blows my mind because our teachers, they love socializing together. We do lots of things together. They go to each other's classes. You want your teachers to love working there because clients pick up on their energy, even if they don't say anything, don't they? They can feel it. They can feel the teachers who just are in love with being with you and being with their clients. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It is about that whole vibes. It starts off as you know, it's your studio, it's just you. And then it is that challenge of how do you expand it into other people, but that so that another teacher tells you, I've got a client who's been with me for 20 years in your studio. You know, they have the same vibe. And that can be a challenge, can't it? Finding that sometimes and making sure that it works.
Yeah. So we were talking about this, I'm sure, last week, because it's one of those challenges when you're a studio owner to grow a business. Sometimes you have to do less teaching. And you know this, you have to do less teaching because your focus has to shift on the business side of things a bit more rather than the teaching. And then it's a slight apprehension that you're going to then, obviously, you're going to give your classes then to another teacher. But I did that recently and they don't care. I gave 3 classes away and they're like, who's Sarah? And I'm like, well, that's brilliant because Sharon's taken on those classes and it's like, don't care about Sarah anymore. We're on to our new teacher and they've had this seamless transition and they love her now. And it's like,
And I have had that too. I actually was speaking to one of my instructors that does loads and loads of hours for us, and she's giving up a Saturday. She's been teaching it for like 8 years, and she was saying, you know, I'm feeling really worried about how all these people are going to feel. And she's been mentoring the replacement for about 3 months. I said, Alice, they're not going to care, and I mean that in the best way because you've done such a good job of the replacement. It's not if you put someone terrible in, of course they would miss that. But actually, I think one of the things I've loved about what I've worked hard with my studio, and I love hearing from clients, is when clients say, I know that everyone who works at Soul is good. And it sounds like it's the same at yours. And so clients kind of buy into the studio experience much more than just the individual teachers, which I think is an important business aspect too, really. You want people to feel like they're with you as a studio.
They do move about, don't they?
But with different teachers.
More now than they've ever done. Yeah, I walk up now, up the corridor, they think I'm the cleaner.
Well, this is the interesting thing, isn't it? Same. I think there was a time, Linda, I imagine you knew every single person. And I don't know, Sarah, maybe it's the same for you. And then there gets a point you're like, there's people I've never met. They're just names that I see. And it's the challenge, I think, of the growth of a studio, isn't it? Is that the sort of amount of hand holding that you had and the presence that you've had, but then how do you grow and evolve and expand into that? And we'll get onto that because I think that's such an interesting point to make. I'm also really interested in talking to you about the rise of reformer Pilates and the explosion of teacher trainings as well. You've been, you know, running group reformer classes for 10 years, which is, you know, way before the trend and before it became sexy on Instagram. What's been the biggest challenge and change that you've seen in the industry since you started 10 years ago with this?
10 years ago, no one had heard of a reformer in Sutton Coldfield. So
no, I was the only one. There was no one. There was the Royal Ballet in Birmingham. Then there was me.
But I don't think even the Royal Ballet did group reformer classes.
No, they didn't.
They had a studio with equipment in it, but I don't think there was such a thing as group reformer.
Body Control said they were doing group reformer. And we had 2 reformers at that point. And I went down. None of the teachers knew. And I caught a train on Thursday when I finished work and did a class and came back and did that for 6 weeks to see what I thought. And then we talked about it and we invited all the girls round to our house for dinner. And I said to them, okay, we're going to start group Pilates on the reform. They couldn't believe it. And then we started to get all our machines together, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it just, well, I don't say it took off. I think it took time because people kept looking at the machines going,
They were scared. They were scared. So we had them in a separate room What we did, looking back, is we spent a lot of time giving tasters, because people had been used to the mat by this point, been doing mat with us for 9 years. That's what Pilates was to them. There was nothing else. Then Mum had been doing private sessions on our reformer and on, I think you had one caddy at that time, but it was separate. That's the rehab bit. That's not group classes. It's not for me. So then we're starting to educate them, and we start doing these little tasters. And I know that we were so regimented with the introduction of people to the reformer. Do you remember? We taught them this on week 1. Week 2, we taught them that again, and maybe one more exercise. And so we had a 10-week lesson plan, and that's what every teacher did. So it got everyone very familiar with the reformer and with that beginner's repertoire. It did, and everyone was safe.
I think there was another turning point, and that was I was on my way to Wales in the car, and we were talking about the room isn't big enough to do what we wanted. We swapped the rooms because people couldn't see the machines, and once they walked in, and there they all were. Someone said, "Oh, it's Pilates on a machine." Like, yes, but they didn't get that. The more people saw it, the more they wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And that was a bit of an explosion.
Linda, at that point, it's a huge investment to spend money on equipment. It's not booming like it is now. What sort of gave you that confidence to add that at a point where you were really one of the first?
I've just really liked spending money.
We love shopping.
Yeah. Well, Canny, we did buy second hand.
We did. You know what I think when we were making those decisions, which were always actually quite fast. Like we don't think about things for 6 months.
We just do it.
We're like, so Mum will say something to me like, "Let's do group 4," and I'll say, "I was thinking about that already," and then we go, "Right, let's do it."
Yeah.
So then we find one on eBay. I think we bought I think we might have bought 2 new ones from.
Yeah, we had 2
Balance
new
Body.
ones. Yeah.
Buying equipment secondhand was always such a good idea. It's how I started as well. But you did end up driving around the country trying to figure out how you got these reformers. They're very long. They're longer than you think, aren't they, every time? Is there anything that you think has now been lost in some of the, Pilates has become so more mainstream, very different today. Is there anything that you think is being lost?
When I look at some of the choreography and movements on reformers now, there's barely a thread of actual Pilates, and that, well, apart from being really frustrating because they call it Pilates on their marketing, it's just a shame, what these people are going and doing on reformers. If it's that fitness, fast-paced fitness, lunging, what have you, what they're doing, they may as well go to the gym for. I get it that people want to be out of breath and, challenge cardiovascularly, but go and do it at the gym, because that's not what the reformer was built for.
It won't do what they wanted to do. I watched a little clip last night where someone was standing on the reform with bent knees, with the handles, and pulling it towards her, and she nearly toppled forward. So the teacher pushed her back a little bit. She lost her balance and fell in the hole. It's horrific to watch things like that. I can't bear it.
In 25 years, I can count on one hand the accidents we've had. And I know the names of the people who had the accident. Like, when I think of those, it makes me feel really ill, because it should be the absolute exception rather than the norm. And when I look back at those reasons why those people may have had the accidents, I now know, obviously that person wasn't ready for that movement. But it wasn't because we were having them standing up on a Bosu ball with a flipping magic circle between their knees. It was just rowing, and he perhaps hadn't understood fully yet that he wasn't going to pull on the rope so much yet, and so he went too far and fell towards the springs or whatever. Each of those accidents, which, maybe there is 4, not 5, you can kind of understand why those happened.
Similar to you, I think in my own personal teaching, I can think of 2 pretty small accidents, but I'm similar. I know exactly what happened. Remember the names, can see it. And where we've had accidents as a studio, we have a policy where They have to fill in a form, but it's more than just an accident form. I want to know, what was the exercise? What spring was it on? What was the setup? How did you get them successfully into this? Now this has happened and you've got the benefit of hindsight. What might you do differently? And so at least we can learn and we can figure out. And most of the time, it's maybe just a poor setup, or a spring was too light, or the wrong exercise being taught to the wrong level, perhaps. So sometimes the new teachers need a bit of help with that, especially depending on what kind of teacher training they've done. And yet I go to some of those fitness Pilates studios. I find them fun, but I know I don't go often, but if I'm in London or somewhere, I'll go. I think they're fun and I know what I'm going to. And I look around the room with horror and think, if I had to fill in the form because one of these people fell off, you're not satisfying any of the criteria I want as a studio owner, which is you've set this person up, you've educated them. There's a thread through the class of education points on these movements. So when they get to the big move, they really understand it. Sometimes these really big moves are right at the beginning, which kind of leads me on, Sarah, to you trained with body control as well, and then you later did your classical Pilates training. I'm interested in where that came from and how you've kind of found learning about more of the system and how that might have influenced the studio.
I look back on my body control Pilates journey as a real safe, solid, like grounding in Pilates that brought us a lot of clients throughout like the 2000s. Well, right up until,
2 years ago.
yeah.
So successfully.
Like really successfully teaching contemporary Pilates to a lot of people. The question for me started to come up because I couldn't quite work out how it all fitted like together. We had a combo chair and a ladder barrel that we never used. We had group reformer classes, group Cadillac classes. That was another big like step forward for our studio, taken on. But it was all very separate. We had the mat classes, Cadillac classes, reformer classes, and then solos. But even in the solos, we wouldn't really use the combo chair or the ladder barrel because we were like, I don't really know what to do on them. All my contemporary training, and it wasn't done comprehensively at Body Control. I did blocks. So I did my mat, then I did reformer, then I did my caddy.
See, now I did the chair and came away from it and I hadn't enjoyed it and therefore didn't really use it.
I don't really understand why a lot of the big teacher training schools insist on doing it in this kind of modular system. Like you do mat, you do reformer, then you might do your other equipment. I learned with post-natal Pilates where you learn it all together and you see the system and you see the links. And so you can see, oh, someone is struggling with this move on this piece of equipment. I know that this piece of equipment will help them figure out X, Y, and Z in their body a bit more. So I'm going to take them over there. So I'm always moving people between them. And I always say to students, if you didn't learn it like this, you just see them as these separate bits and pieces. So I completely understand what you're saying, Sarah. So you started your classical training because you felt like you wanted to know the system. Did you work with Leslie Logan? Is that when you started working with her? What sort of led you to her? And did the classical system help put together the pieces for you?
Yeah, so I was drawn to Leslie purely through Instagram and watching some of her stuff on YouTube. She has a personality that you're drawn to, yeah? And you either, well, I suppose there are some people that probably may not like the way she teaches, but I was drawn to the simplicity of the language she uses, lack of imagery, and just straight between the eyes. I grew up on imagery and a lot of words. And I'm like, and we are like verbal diarrheaing, trying to teach Pilates through talk. She was like, stop trying to talk Pilates into the body and feel it yourself. And I was like, oh, right, yeah, I don't do any Pilates. This is a big problem. So I'm only inspired because I don't actually do Pilates. So I signed up for her mentorship. And that first time I met her, she said, Sarah, I have no idea who you are. Everyone else on my mentorship, I've either been in my business coaching or been an OPC member, and you've literally come out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, I saw you on Instagram. I like what you said, and I signed up, which goes back to the point where we don't spend 6 months thinking about something. I decide to do it, and then I go and do it. And I spent 9 months with Leslie, which, by the way, was all online, which a lot of people would go, well, that's no good.
I said that. I can't see how that's going to work. And I thought that's really expensive.
But you know what?
I've
got 3 children, a business, and a house to run. That is the only way I was going to do a classical mentorship.
And you were already a teacher. I think doing online only, if you've never been able to look at a person, move with a person, tactile cue a person, there's part of the teaching that's very hard to teach online. You know, when people come and mentor with me in person, we're looking at their tactile cues, we're looking, these very in-person things. But absolutely, I think the world of online for ongoing education is phenomenal. So I can totally see how that would work with where you were and the flexibility it gave you around, the constraints that you have in your life for sure. So what was your kind of takeout from that? Did it open your eyes? Where did you land at the end of those 9 months with her?
As with any training that you go through, it's a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it? You go in instantly, you think, what have I done? Because they may as well just like take everything that you've ever done and rip it up and throw it out the window. And you're like, what have I been doing for all these years? The mat was the first module, and then we moved on to the reformer. The mat was kind of like, this is what you need to be practicing. Now start doing mat work. Like, this is the foundation. So get your practice in. And that's what I did. The reformer weekend made me cry. I was like, what the hell? The setup is so different. Classically, the ropes are longer. We use handles. The springs are completely different. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get through it.
It is hard, isn't it? Like midway through your career, learning to unlearn and relearn something is a huge ask, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, the 9 months is just the start of it, really. And then it's been this last 3 years since that I've really kind of embodied it. But the number one takeaway was self-practice, without a doubt. That is the route to all of your inspiration as a teacher. You can go on as many training courses, workshops as you like. If you're not doing Pilates, you can't teach it from
your heart. No, you can't.
It's such an important point that you make. And often we get into this because we loved Pilates and then we forget, well, not that we forget, but we just get so busy teaching, we're not doing it. And you can't teach it if it's not in your body. Going back to what you said earlier about the energy of the space and the energetics that you want to create with these clients, you've got to love it for them to love it as well, don't you? Like they pick up on that. So similar for me, I am always coming back to the fact, like, got to have more self-practice. And even if it's 15 minutes of mat work a day when the kids are having their breakfast, I mean, I'm still in my pajamas. I can't film it for Instagram. It looks terrible. But you know what? It's made a huge difference in how I'm feeling. We've got to walk the walk, haven't we, as teachers?
Absolutely.
Did you then mentor your mum in the classical sort of ways as she had mentored you?
No, it's a shock when she came back the tour, because basically she'd thrown the baby out with water, hadn't she? And I'm like, I felt a little bit lost by it to begin with. But then she was so dedicated. But I said, as a family, we're doers. Do you know what I mean? We don't think, we get on. And so she did what I thought she would do. But then she transformed her body. I'm not kidding. I watched her body change shape. If I'm honest, that changed my view completely. So I started believing what she was doing. And then I was pinching bits. So I'd go to her classes and she'd teach me and I'd go, oh my God, that really works. That changes this, that changes that. And so I started introducing it and then was utterly convinced it was the right thing and that I needed to do it.
And I can't remember at what point I said, I think I would like to mentor other teachers.
I was thinking she needs to teach the other teachers. We all need to know this stuff. It's so good and so accessible and so obvious.
Sometimes it's just the simplicity of this stuff. And do you blend both approaches now, or are you more of a classical studio? Like, where does the ethos of the studio live?
Because at the moment I'm mentoring mom and then 3 other teachers. So I'm basically teaching them what Leslie taught me. Obviously there's Sarah thrown into the mix, so it's not all Leslie. That means there will be 5 teachers here which are classically trained. There's going to be an obvious shift, isn't there, on that basis? Because I know from what Mom and Samantha and Yvonne have embraced already and taken on, that they probably will follow a more classical route with their teaching. We don't need to be one or the other. I'm like pretty comfortable that our studio teaches both routes because there's validity in both. The important thing is that the level of depth of training and understanding that the teachers have, that's more important to me.
Tell me, what does the shift look like for you? So though a teacher who's now moved more into that classical space versus maybe where they were before. You talked about some of the cueing might be different. Are they also following the order and doing it in that
Yeah.
way? You're going, so you're like embracing the full kind of classical system, because I think one of the things I get a bit annoyed about sometimes when I go to some of these fitness studios is they say, "Oh, you like classical Pilates," meaning what we're talking about, contemporary Pilates, actually, meaning like not fitness. And that the word classical is getting mixed up with that now, isn't it? Like it's the old way of doing it as opposed to the classical system of an order. I had Amy from Everybody Pilates on the podcast, and she, was saying, the transformation in your body when you're following these sequences and the repetition. And I remember years ago when I first opened, having a client say to me, "Nick, I don't always need to get new things. I'd actually quite like to practice what you'd already taught me." And so I really leaned back into that a little bit and said, okay, and that's really, I guess, what the classical system has in it in abundance, is lots of repetition for your body to really figure it out.
Older clients, I'm very careful about giving them classical. The ones in their 70s and 80s, they've learnt it all with me for 20 years. And so, yeah, they're gonna get spine curls and hip rolls because it makes them feel very comfortable. But then I'll add a bit of other stuff in as well. But if I can go just classical, yes, definitely. With younger people, I think, and people who are new, we can do that. And we are doing it.
And it's great for clients to come to your studio and actually have the opportunity to experience a range of styles and to figure out for themselves what they like, what makes them feel good. Everyone's different, aren't they? You've got 4 dedicated studio spaces. Can I ask, what does your team look like? How far apart are these studios and how do you run those studios?
So the spaces are all in one building.
3,700 square foot.
Wow. So one ginormous studio. I mean, we don't get that in the UK very often.
Yeah, so it's grown. So during COVID, we moved into this complex, which is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. We have a restaurant and a coffee shop and a food hall on site, and then there are a few more concessions.
Garden centre.
The studio's kind of almost doubled in size since we came here because we wanted to have a space for a classical studio, which is where we're sat now. So in this room, we have a caddy, 2 towers, the ladder barrel, high chair, baby chair, wonder chair, and pedipal. Yeah, I think I want a spine corrector.
And what equipment brand do you use for your classical? Is it different to what you used before?
Yes, it is. So this is all legacy. The Cadillacs and the Studio Reformers are all balanced body in the group classes. And then our mat room, we went for legacy classical mats. So pretty much as soon as I started my mentorship with Leslie, I was like, we got to get these mats. And the clients bloody love them, don't they? They've got a strap and they've got handles and they're like, oh my God.
They're comfortable.
They are nice to lie on, aren't they?
They're beautiful spaces, I've got to say. And then, of course, the other thing is we've got 6 caddies, which is very unusual.
Very unusual. And do you do anything group on the caddy?
Yeah, so group caddy classes, which
very successful.
It's not even a thing. I think it's an
EQ thing.
It's an EQ thing. We totally made that up because the Cadillac is so accessible for like anyone
as well. Yeah, it's very safe, isn't it? And yet you can then take them hanging. So the people you wouldn't think would do the stuff they can do, you wouldn't believe it, in their 70s and 80s, doing pull-ups and hanging and.
The hanging stuff looks so impressive, but actually, if you understand the strategies, it's actually not too tricky, and people love it because they feel so empowered. Because it's one of the kind of cool things that you see. We have a small equipment studio with each piece of equipment. We sort of do a group class where people can move around the equipment. It's kind of the best use of it we've been able to find outside of privates, but at least we can get people to experience it. People love it. I think once people fall in love with the equipment, I guess what they tap into is the system, and they start to understand that it's more than just, a sort of standardized group class. Even in a group equipment class, you can just adapt so much easier for people. And it allows people, doesn't it, to have that kind of the experience that often we were only getting in privates, but at a more affordable group price to be able to experience these equipment. So what does your team look like outside of your teaching team? How do you run the studios?
So my dad has always been involved with running the studio. So he was always the one that maintained the studio, did all the painting and the decorating, and he did the bookkeeping. Now, Dad has kind of stepped away, doesn't do that, although he comes to Pilates 3 times a week. My husband has stepped in. He's now helping with more of the business side of things.
But he also picks up a paintbrush. And for years, he's really told us that he doesn't paint. Guess what he does?
when he needs to.
Yeah, exactly. So in fact, Ants is now the one that looks after reception. We made a change this year, and we told Samantha, one of our teachers who looked after reception, we were like, you can't do reception anymore.
Because she's a qualified teacher.
You need to be teaching. So we've kicked her out. And then I was like, oh shit, now he's going to manage reception. So my husband stepped in because he was having a career break. He stepped in saying, oh, it's just a few emails in the morning, Sarah.
Yeah, right.
Guess what he says now? I realise that's quite a difficult job. I was like, yes, it is.
He can't manage classes, so many that doesn't get on and do his classes, so there's not time.
My husband came to work for the business about 1.5 years ago, and similarly, his role has evolved, but it was the things I was doing at 6 a.m. when I was up with the kids before we got going for the day. He took over and does more. But similar, he's like, God, Nick, how did you ever fit all this stuff in? There's so much to do. I'm like, I know, got to kind of crack on. But it's amazing how it started off as your business, Linda. Sarah, you came in, you've got your husband there, now your husband as well. So it is all of you. Like, it's the truest sense of a family business. What are the dynamics of that like? Do you have any challenges around that, or has it worked well?
I think Mum and I think alike in a lot of sense. Like I said earlier, if I'm thinking something, you can almost guarantee Mum's thinking about it exactly the same time. And we'll often WhatsApp each other and she'll go, that's weird.
We actually WhatsApp at exactly the same time and they swap.
And it can be about the same thing.
It's very scary. I try not to get too close to her when I'm thinking thoughts I don't want her to know about.
I swear we're telepathic.
Yeah.
There is a shift, and it's undeniable, isn't it, Mum? Like, Mum's 77, and I'm now getting close to the age where Mum started the business. So I'm 49, and so, Mum does do less teaching, and I do more.
But have you found the business aspect of it a challenge? How have you managed that?
Well, I think it's changed, hasn't it? Because I always got someone in to do the business because I just opened the business. I didn't know how to run a business. So just got someone and said, do that, do the paperwork, do whatever you have to do. I'll do the teaching. Sarah did business studies at university and we never thought she'd put it to any practical use. But guess what? She has now. I think I've still got the drive to teach. I still feel very passionate about what I do and everything. But the business side of it, yeah, I want to be involved in the decision making. And that's it.
Have you seen some shifts in the business, like how you've had to do it? What have been the shifts, Sarah, that you've had to kind of bring through?
So there was, a big moment was when we broke our VAT threshold. Yeah. So we did manage to go under the radar as a partnership for a while. There was a few loopholes as partners where you could separate the earnings by teacher. I think we got away with it. And our accountant eventually said, we've got to do the VAT thing. And then straight away, we're still a small business, but straight away, as soon as you pass that threshold, all of a sudden treated as a big business and you have to pay 20% VAT. That means you've got to make 20% just to pay the tax. So you're growing then just to pay the bills.
For anyone listening, VAT is the cruelest tax. When I hear people saying they get annoyed, I don't know, income tax, stuff like that, I'm like, no, you just got to pay your dues, right? We all have to do that. VAT is the killer of small businesses. Can you imagine in your personal earnings that you go over the threshold and then suddenly you pay that percentage on every penny you've earned, so you earn less? That's what happens to businesses when they hit the VAT threshold. And you have to make the decision, don't you? Do we stay small and not grow? Or can we be confident we're going to make about 50, 60K turnover more just to be in a better place? And I remember sitting down also with my accountant and being like, I can't have a stay still mentality, but I never knew if we were going to be able to do it. And we had to change a lot in the business to say, if you tip over it, it could take you under. It's the cruelest tax. For such a long time, Pilates was exempt from VAT because it fell under education. Then there was this big court case. I don't know why somebody isn't putting forward a case to put us under rehabilitation, especially for private, because the rehabilitation world doesn't pay VAT. And yet we in private and in groups, if you're the kind of studio like we are, we definitely fall under the rehab part of it. But it is an incredibly cruel tax here in the UK. I know other countries have similar ones. So you tipped over that. What did you have to, were you like me? You had to be like, we're going to have to find a load more incomes from somewhere to make this work.
Yeah, because we didn't want to pass that straight on to our clients, because then you smack 20% on all the class prices. That's hard.
And it prices you out of the market if you are in a competitive market, because suddenly you're now more expensive than a competitor who isn't paying VAT, and yet you're only actually earning the same.
It was difficult because I'm ambitious, and I don't think I ever thought I was, but obviously I am, because I was like, I'm not going to hold EQ back for VAT. We stand still, we'll die in this business, because of the way it's kind of moving. So we're like, well, we've got to grow. I think this year I've learned more about business than anything.
Because it's been our hardest financial year, really, because of that we spent as well.
So we obviously invested in all this new equipment in this room. We expanded the studio as well. We're starting to pay VAT, and suddenly we're like, we're not actually profitable. Although our turnover has almost doubled, and that not in the last year, but in recent years it's doubled. Our profitability isn't there. And as studio owners, if I worked out what I earn, I'm on the minimum wage.
On a good day, you're on minimum wage. I think that's quite, I remember many a time being like, I think this is illegal. I don't even get minimum wage.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon, is it? And I know Jenna was saying the business model is all wrong. And I'm like, we've got to find a way to make our business more profitable. Unfortunately, where we are, we're not in an industrial location, so we do pay a lot for rent.
Eye-watering.
But that's where we are. It's
where we wanted to be. This is where we always wanted to be.
So we could immediately make a lot more money if we were in a not very nice location. But we choose to be here, so that's where we are. So now we're thinking, as a business, how do we get more from the clients we already have? So it's not that we need more clients, but we want to do more with the clients that we have. So encouraging them to do more than one class a week, which, as we know, should be the case anyway. One class a week is not enough. Bringing in more workshops, so there's different events.
That's a lot of work, though, isn't it?
It is a lot of work, but what you're talking about is trying to make what you've got work harder for you.
Yes, we got to sweat the assets. That's what my 91-year-old client keeps telling me. Are you sweating your assets? And when I say we're closed for holidays, he said, you can't sweat the assets when you're closed, Sarah.
So we cut down our holidays.
So what I learned is you kind of almost have to start right at the beginning of your pricing model. And I think what a lot of people do, I'm not saying you did this, but what a lot of people do is they kind of go, well, what are other people charging? I'll charge around the same. And they don't actually look at kind of just ignoring that and saying, okay, how much does my rent cost? You're in an expensive area. How much do our rates cost? And kind of add it all up. And the model really roughly should be that 30% of your income should go on your rent, your running costs, your electricity, your water. 30% should go on paying the team, and about 30% should be left as profit. That's your ideal. And then there's like a 10% slush fund. So if you're in a more expensive area, then it might be that 40% of your costs, of your income goes on the running costs. And you kind of need to do that maths and work it backwards and then say, how many people do I have in a class? How many classes do we run a week? And actually, how much should we be charging? And how far off that are we? Can we ever realistically charge somebody this? And if we can't, then we've got to look at, can we increase the capacity of the classes? Can we increase the number of the classes? There might be other ways that we can do it. But often when I have worked with other studios, they're way off the mark and they're looking at what other people are charging and they're probably modeling themselves on other people who are also not profitable. So sometimes you have to be the person who starts and says, and you've got clients who are very loyal. We came back after COVID. We totally shifted our pricing. Everyone paid it. They loved what we did. They paid it. Your clients don't want to know that you don't take an earning. Because I remember being at that point, and I think clients thought I was minted because I had this gorgeous studio and everything was full and everything looked like it was thriving. But the reverse was very, very true. But I think, there's some great business coaches out there. And I think for anyone who's listening, who's in a similar position, it's so worth using them. Find one that you like. There are some really good ones out there who they look at the model. Until you've got that right, doesn't matter what you market, doesn't matter how many new leads you bring in. You've got to have them coming in. It's a tough place to be. Equally, you've grown, you've invested. So whenever any business does that, it's a tough time.
Yeah, there's always going to be a bit of tightening of the belt, isn't there? But I think we're there now, that place where we're just about to, find that business coach or whoever to just give us a kick.
Look, the weekend we spent recently with Leslie was some of it was about that, and she talked about what you give someone in 55 or 60 minutes.
Yeah,
and are you charging enough? Because they're not just getting 55, 60 minutes; they're getting stronger and healthier and a better life.
It's not just the cost; it's the value of what that session gives you.
There are plenty of studios where you can go and do 2 classes for £15, intro offer. And then every class after that is only £15, or it's a bolt on to a gym membership. And so it's quite low cost. But I look at those and actually think that's bad value for money. 15 quid for a class, which is choreography at best, surface level training, no teaching as such, kind of like follow my leader. See, I see that as bad value for money as opposed to, a cheap class. Because I think you should pay nothing for that class versus, you come here and a drop in is £30. Now, obviously that is the least economic way of buying a class with us, but for 30 quid, you're getting 24 years of experience, years of ongoing training and development from all our teachers, real teaching where we teach the body in front of us, and hopefully they leave learning something rather than just like a hot, sweaty mess with jelly legs. That is value to me. Yes, it's twice the price of the class down the road, but they're actually getting
a lot for their money.
And then outside of the class, community, friendship, a stronger body, a more resilient mind, the ability to, have a better mind-body connection, picking up the grandchildren. For me, that's what's missing from a client perspective.
It's like you said before, though, isn't it? People buy into the experience. It's what you get when you go to a real, true Pilates studio. You're buying into so much more than just choreography and movement. I think the challenge is, and I've said it so many times on the podcast, it's down to the studio owners. How do we educate our clients so that they understand the difference? And fine, if you want to go to the gym and do a bit of Pilates at the gym, fine, that's okay. But just know it's going to be different. And so know why the price point is different. What's next for EQ Pilates? What does the next year or 2 years look like for you?
Well, we've got to shift that profitability scale a little bit, haven't we?
Definitely.
That's a big one. So I think, you'll finish your mentorship with me, which makes it sound very grand, doesn't it? I'll graduate her. I'll graduate her.
To give her a little ceremony.
I'll graduate her and the other teachers. We're going to push the Joe's Gym. So we do in this room where we've got our classical system, we want more of our clients to experience what Joe did. We call it a studio session, but I think we may rebrand it as a Joe's Gym because that's what it is.
So Joe's Gym, is that where people have their own individual plan and then once they've maybe got it from private and then they take it into a group class? Is that how it works?
Yes. So although we don't give people a physical list of exercises, we encourage them to bring a notebook. So it's like even more autonomous than giving a list. So it's not for everyone because some people need to be spoon-fed every bit of information. But I see our role as giving people a practice that they can do on their own. If they go to a luxury hotel and there's a reformer, they can do a reformer workout. And they don't need Sarah going, breathe in, breathe out, engage your pelvic floor and push the machine out.
And there's only 4 in our sessions.
Yes,
Some teacher can manage 4.
As we end our conversation today, because it's been so much fun to chat to you, I've just got a few quick fire questions. Classical, contemporary, or a mix?
A mix.
Yeah, I think a mix.
Favorite piece of apparatus?
For me, it's the baby armchair.
At the moment.
At the moment,
change.
Yeah, it changes.
The mat.
One thing you change in the Pilates industry?
That everyone has to have a qualification.
Oh, regulation for me.
Yeah, that's what I mean, regulation.
And the best piece of advice you've been given?
Practice.
Mm.
I thought you would say whatever Alan Herdman said to you.
Which was what?
Stop posing for holidays.
I did. He said, Linda, how do you make any money? He said, ask me how many days I shut my studio. I said, how many? He went, 2 a year. One of those is Christmas Day. I don't know when the other ones are
We used to shut for Easter and for Christmas. And then one year we thought we'd open. We were so busy because you forget people often have time. When I'm going visiting my family at Christmas, I look for a studio to be open. So yeah, I totally get that. Thank you both so much for chatting to me today. It has been so fun to get to know you and hear more about your story. And I'm sure lots of other studio owners will take so much from this as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed it.
I really hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. What an amazing insight into running a multi-generational studio and navigating the changing tides of the Pilates world. I'm absolutely loving getting to know all these brilliant teachers, mentors, and leaders, and also getting to know you, our growing community of listeners. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Beyond the Reformer.